Okay, let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining this afternoon and welcome to the first installment of our monthly webinar series that we'll be doing here at Synzi on different functionality and new updates within the system. My name is Michael Pepe and I'll be taking you through a live tour of our new assessment tool. Just a couple quick housekeeping items. Everyone is muted joining as well too. You do have a Q&A box up here as well. So if you want to ask any questions throughout the presentation, please go ahead and type those in and we'll open for questions at the end as well. So as you saw in our invite, today I look forward to highlighting how our innovative assessment tool supports quality of care for your patients, satisfaction, and outcomes. So we're going to be going through a couple different areas today, some hot topics in the past couple weeks, in the past couple months. So really assessing staff for COVID-19 before they might return back to work or maybe visiting patients home. And then on the patient side, just gaining more insight into the patient's progress, recognizing if patients' conditions worsen and how to intervene directly through Synzi, and then comparing results as well too across the whole assessment tool. So this session is going to be recorded. If you do have, any questions, like I mentioned, please type them in the chat window. After the session, if you would like additional training or assistance configuring your own assessments to meet your workflow, please reach out to your account manager or implementation team here at Synzi. They'll be more than happy to go over some more details with you. Okay, so just for today's agenda, we're going to be starting at Assessments 101, just for any of the folks that are on the line that might not be familiar with what our survey and assessment tool does within the system. We'll also be going through actually configuring an assessment, so just a general wellness assessment. And then I actually broke it up into a couple different areas. So we'll be focusing on assigning assessments to staff and then managing those staff members and their results. And then we'll jump over onto the patient side and then reporting to tie it all back in. So, how to really manage that data and view the results of both your staff and patient assessments. Okay, so what are assessments to begin with? So our assessment tool was released in the earlier part of 2020. And as you know, with Synzi, we're constantly making different iterations of the product, improving it. So really our first release of the assessment tool was in the beginning of the year. But really assessments can be used for just various different types of surveying methods. So whether it is a clinical survey or it is more of an administrative survey, our client base is using it for both aspects. Recently, in the previous few months, the ability to assign assessments to staff has been released as well too. So as you can imagine, using a COVID-19 assessment for return to work to survey employee population, as well as just employee satisfaction or maybe gaining insight into what your staff are thinking has been very useful. So we're going to go through, as you can see in the third bullet point there, how to assign assessments, how to trigger any flagged responses. So, not only are you able to report off of these responses, but you can be alerted real time, especially on the patient aspect. If a patient or a segment of a patient population responds to a specific question that you answer is really powerful in gaining immediate insight. And like I mentioned, we'll be building an assessment, but think of the types of questions that you can ask in these assessments, whether they're a single choice out of a list. You can do multiple choice questions and then yes, no questions, ratings, and then just a text box. So I'll be walking you through all this as well. So let's go ahead and skip over to enterprise administration. So this is where the assessment tool lives. This is where the reporting lives for assessments and configuring and editing assessments. Okay, so scrolling down on the left-hand side in the assessments area, really viewing my full list of assessments within here, if you already have assessments built, you're able to disable any of these quickly if you did not want them in your live environment for your staff to fill out. But let's go ahead and let's just build a new assessment so you can see what that looks like from scratch. And then we can go ahead and show you how to edit some of these questions. So to build a new assessment by clicking on the blue button, and I'm just going to build a general wellness assessment. Okay, so I'm going to name it, and time to complete, I'm going to say it takes 5 minutes. And now how long I want patients to complete it within. So I'm just going to say complete it within 1 day. All right, so within the introduction, this is what the patient's going to see when they open the assessment. Okay, so this is to gauge your general health. Okay, so the patient or the staff member, when they open the assessment, is going to see how long it's going to take to complete, when they have to complete it by, and then what the assessment is for. So you want to make sure, you know, you're as detailed as possible in the introduction. Okay, so I do have the assessment named and template built out. So now to go ahead and add questions and edit it, I just need to click back onto the assessment. And so now I'm going to add various questions, and I can do that down here. I can also set up the assessment to be recurring as well too. So you can assign assessments on a manual basis to staff and to patients, but let's just say I wanted it to be a recurring COVID-19 assessment, checking for new symptoms. Okay, I can make it a recurring assessment that can go out on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and change that directly within here. And we do have clients that use it that way as well. So let's just go ahead and add a couple questions just so you could see what that looks like. Okay, so the first one I'm going to add is a rating scale. So what you'll need to do is you'll choose from the dropdown what type of question format you want. So I'm going to choose a rating scale. And it's just going to be a very simple, how are you feeling today? Okay, and so at the bottom end of the scale, I'm going to say not well. And then at the top end of the scale, I'm going to say excellent. Okay, so as you can see, it populated my rating scale. So when a staff member or patient goes to answer it, they can select from a number radio button and choose it directly. All right, I can then create a yes/no question. Okay, and from here, I could actually change if I didn't want it to be a yes, no, I can edit those as well too. And then now I do have the flagging options. Okay, so I can select yes, and I can select a flag next to the yes response that anytime a staff member or patient responds yes to this specific question, I'm going to get an alert as a secure message, or I can run an intervention report, and we'll get into the reporting once we complete some of these assessments. Okay, so I'm going to leave that flagged. Okay, and then lastly, I'm just going to add a multiple choice question. And so now I'm going to go ahead and add my choices that I want that user to select from. Okay, so once I have all my questions assembled, I can go ahead. It is now, the assessment is now live. It is now available for my staff to go ahead and assign it a couple different ways. So let's talk about staff assessments and assignments first. You do have the ability down here over on the left-hand side, if you wanted to bulk assign already created assessment to your entire population. And that could be your entire population of staff or to your patients. And you can assign it to both, okay? So if I wanted it to go out to my entire population, simply need to go ahead and toggle the staff toggle right here, and then just select assign, and it's gonna go a bulk assign method. You do have the option that if you do need to unassign any of the assessments that you did bulk assign, you can bulk unassign those assessments as well. Let's go ahead and just assign this assessment to an individual staff member. So I could do that up here in the staff user account area. So this is where you manage the username, you reset a password. So let's just go ahead and assign this individual assessment to Dean Klein here. Okay, so Dean Klein actually already has a return to work survey. So I'm going to assign the general wellness one. Okay, so now Dean has a general wellness assessment down here. So logging into the virtual care application, I am now logged in as Dean Klein. I also, as a staff user, I will also get an email as well too. So this is just a sample email that Dean Klein, the RN staff member, has a new assessment. They have a push notification to their device as well as this email that they have a new assessment that needs to be completed. All right, so Dean Klein, the nurse, can then go ahead, click on the assessment. So here's the introduction. Here's how long it's going to take. Here's when he needs to complete it by. All right, so now Dean can just take these questions that we recently created in the assessment. All right, so now Dean Klein, the staff member, he has completed his assessment fully. Back over on the enterprise administration side. So let's go back to the assessment area now if we want to report off of any of Dean's responses. So we're going to tackle the patient aspect in a minute, but let's go ahead and go down to the staff reporting, and that's right down here on the left-hand side. So there's 3 different reporting features within Enterprise Admin, and they're the same exact for the patient aspect for assessments. You can view assessment results by specific staff member and by specific patient. You can also view any interventions, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute. And then you can also view the assessment across the entire board of what the results were there. So for instance, if I want to view a specific staff member, I'm going to pull up Dean Klein, and here is all the assessments that Dean has completed. Up top, you'll get a view, just a quick summary view of the total amount of assessments assigned to him, how many he's completed and how many are incomplete. Any of the reports as well too for assessments, you can download to CSV. If you need to manipulate that data any further, you can absolutely do that. And then here is the oldest assessment that Dean had completed. So if I scroll down here, here's the general wellness assessment that Dean just completed. So as you can see, it's real-time data, comes in immediately. An administrator, a team leader could go ahead, run the report immediately as soon as Dean completed it. And here is the flagged response from Dean. So he had said he is feeling well today, which is great. You typically don't want to flag those. But from here, anyone, an administrator, anyone with the ability to access reports and the clinical content feature in Enterprise Admin can resolve it directly from the report, okay? So, I can send Dean a message directly from here. I could send it on behalf of another staff member, and this will go out directly via email to Dean. Once I am done with that, I can then resolve it as well too. So if I've already reached out to Dean telephonically, maybe through the Synzi app, maybe I've sent him a secure message, maybe I began a virtual visit with Dean just to check in on him, I can click resolve and it's resolved there. Any unresolved interventions will show up directly in the interventions report. Okay. So, as you could see here, when I was in Dean Klein specifically, I can scroll down and view any flagged responses here, or I could just click on the filter button. It'll bring me to any unresolved interventions. But if I want to view across my entire staff population, every intervention that took place, it has an audit trail directly within the interventions report. Lastly, I can run a report purely off of an assessment. So not patient specific, just across the whole assessment. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to pull up the return to work assessment. So a lot of our clients have been using this assessment as well too. Absolutely, if this is something that is of interest to you, please reach out to your implementation team or your account manager. We do have some pre-built assessments regarding COVID and return to work. So, as you could see here directly, these are all the folks in my organization that have completed the return to work assessment. And you'll get a nice response rate up here. So you can see who's in compliance and who's out of compliance. But you can view some of the specific questions here. So most of the questions are revolving around COVID-19 symptoms. Have they experienced them? Have they not experienced them? Have you quarantined in the past 15 days? And then a mental health aspect. Okay, but as you could see, this is more of just a broad overview of who has taken this assessment. I can gather the number of responses for each question and then the percentage, the amount of times people have responded to that specific question. All right, so let's go over to the patient aspect. And if anyone has any questions on staff or staff assessments, please go ahead and type it in the Q&A box. All right, so focusing over on patient assessments. Again, you have the ability, if you do want to send out a COVID-19 or maybe a patient satisfaction assessment across your entire patient population, you are able to, but you're also able to assign those individually. Okay, and so how I'm going to assign an individual assessment to a patient is back in the virtual care application. All right, so I'm going to pull up my patient Ron Daly here. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the patient's profile, you'll see an assessment section. So any assessments that have been created here will be live in here for your staff members to pick from. So I'm going to assign Ron a coronavirus risk assessment. We've had clients use this for the past couple months, and I'll show you what types of questions are in there. Use this type of generic assessment, manipulate it, tweak it, make it their own, build it into their own enterprise. But we've had many clients use this over the past couple months, whether they're going to visit patients in their home the next day. A nurse can use this, look up their schedule for the next day, go ahead and assign these assessments to these patients just to get a good feel on what they might be walking into the next day. All right, so the patient on the patient side, they're going to receive a very similar invite like the staff member did. So they're either going to receive an email or a text message depending upon their communication preference. So the patient is also going to get notified that they have a new assessment waiting for them. The patient will then go ahead and respond to the assessment through the Synzi Care Connect app. All right, so I am currently logged in as patient Ron Daly, and I'm going to go over to my assessment tab up here. Okay, so this is the coronavirus risk assessment. You did not see this one earlier. We used the general wellness assessment for the staff member, but a little different introduction, explaining to the patient, again, more detailed the better, explaining to them what this assessment's for, how long it's going to take, and when to complete it by. All right, so some multiple choice questions for the patient to choose from. Any symptoms they're experiencing. if they have a history of any of the following illnesses, and then have they been in close contact with anyone, and would they like a virtual care nurse to follow up? And now a text box for that patient. Okay, and then just lastly, a rating scale. Okay, so as you can see, some of the questions straight through. So the patient goes ahead and completes the assessment. Again, just like the staff member, it is now completed and done for the patient. Okay, so we will get back into the enterprise admin where it's a very similar report for the patient as it is for the staff member. But as me, as Dean Klein, I am the one that assigned this assessment to my patient, Ron Daly, individually. I actually had several questions flagged. So, meaning I wanted to receive an immediate intervention, an immediate alert as a secure message. So here are the two that just previously came in. So Ron had actually responded that he was experiencing a fever. I am now going to get a real-time alert that Ron Daly's experiencing a fever. So right directly from my virtual care application, I can send Ron, the patient, a secure message. Okay. And I could ask the exact temperature. Since it's HIPAA compliant, high trust certified platform, you can have those PHI sensitive conversations directly through the secure messaging aspect. Or if I think it's urgent, I can begin a virtual visit with Ron directly in here within the secure message. Okay, so back in the enterprise administration part, let me go ahead and show you how I received those real-time notifications. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the coronavirus risk assessment. So if I go down and edit one of these questions, you'll see a flag over here next to fever. So this is how I was able to get that real-time secure message back to my virtual care app, me as Dean Klein, the nurse for Ron Daly. Okay, and you can flag as many responses as you like. Just remember, you're going to get more alerts to your device. The more questions that you have flagged, the more responses that you have flagged. So if you want to be strategic about it for your staff, so things like down here, would you like a virtual care nurse to follow up with you? You know, if you just have yes flagged, you'll just get a notification for that. You know, if I was to go ahead and flag every single symptom that a patient was having, so cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, I would get an alert every time that specific patient I assigned the assessment to would be getting. All right, so let's go down to the patient report area. So again, very similar on the staff side. I can drill down into a specific patient if I want to. Okay, so Ron has actually completed 61 assessments, and it's going to go in chronological order. So the most recent down at the bottom. And again, I have the same functionality as I did with a staff member. So if someone was backup for a patient and maybe did not get the real-time secure message alert, someone can always come in here and run a report off of Ron's responses. And again, message him directly from the report. Okay, and I can also do this on behalf of another staff member as well too, but I can type a message directly to Ron here, and it'll go out via email or text, depending upon his preference. I have the intervention report as well again. Okay, so any interventions that are left open or that are resolved, I can view this as a nice audit trail. A lot of our clients use this as a checks and balances to make sure patients are being reached out to depending upon their responses, especially helpful on, patient satisfaction assessment, or maybe it was an assessment on how was their last visit with their nurse. You can view that all directly within here. And then I also have the ability to view across the entire assessment again. Okay, so a little bit different, but pretty much the same on the patient side as it is on the staff side. Okay, so I can view my total response rate across my entire patient population and start to get a real sense of where my responses are coming from. All right, so let me go ahead and check the Q&A portion. Just make sure we don't have any open questions. And again, if you do have any questions afterwards, please go ahead and reach out to your account management team or your implementation team. Like I mentioned earlier, we do have some out-of-the-box starter assessments, especially revolving around COVID-19. So if you are interested in starting to use those immediately today, either with your patient population or your staff population, our team can assist you with that. So it looks like we don't have any questions currently that I haven't already answered throughout the session. So I appreciate everyone's time today. Like I mentioned, it is recorded and we will go ahead and share this with you afterwards. But thank you for everyone's time today and for joining. And we will be doing a new topic next month as well, too. Thank you.